Hello, friends. Chip Lutz here with Unconventional Leader, and welcome to another awesome hour of Leadership Happy Hour. Today, I am super excited because I have my very good friend, Eliz Greene, with me to talk about workplace stress. Now, the nice thing is that not only is Eliz a stress expert, she's got an awesome story. I'm not going to share it with you because it's not my story to show, but she's got a great, not my story to tell anyway. She got an awesome story. And further, when I first started my speaking career, she was the one that took the time to really spend some time with me to say, hey, this is what you need to do. So she's been a really good friend, a mentor of mine for nearly a decade. It's just really crazy when I think about it. I was thinking about today is like 2007 is when I started my business. This is 2016. That's nearly a decade.
Wow.
So
it's our friend-iversary almost.
A big cheers to Eliz. Welcome to Leadership Happy Hour.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
What are you toting there in your big fishbowl?
In my big fishbowl. Well, I thought I'm trying to think spring there. I think I got the memo on the lime.
Okay, good deal. Homer Simpson on my glass. So, and Homer Simpson, he's good for any occasion. So welcome. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, Elizabeth Hughes Greene?
Well, I'm a professional speaker, and that's how Chip and I met. And I've been doing that for more than a decade, which is also scary to think about. I really started that path when I was 35 and 7 months pregnant with twins, and I had a heart attack, which is, in the world of professional speaking, you have those people like Chip who come to the speaking world with this wealth of experience and excellent stories to tell because they have done all these things in their career. And then you have people like me who weird things happen to, and that brings us into the world of professional speaking.
Well, if I had twins, that would be a pretty weird thing. So I think my body can handle it. I just don't know if my undercarriage would ever be the same.
I'm going to leave that just where it was.
Sorry, I just thought I'd share that. All right.
But anyway, the good news is that all turned out very well. My beautiful daughters are 15 and freshmen in high school, and I recovered well. But in the process, I became very much interested in making sure that other busy people, and especially busy women, paid attention to their heart health. And that's what I've been doing for more than a decade. And as you mentioned, we're going to talk about workplace stress. Stress has become one of those things that I've come to understand is so very, very vital for us to pay attention to.
Right. Well, I remember reading stuff like Time Magazine declared stress the epidemic of the 1980s. And I think about that, the 1980s, that, here we are like 30 years later, and we still have this epidemic. And it's really gotten worse. I mean, we've cured a whole lot of other diseases, but this whole stress thing, we're still grappling with.
We're still figuring that out. And even more recently, globally, occupational stress has been declared a global epidemic. So it's not just, we think it's our U.S. sort of crazy lifestyle that creates it, but it really is a global problem. And I think it's gotten worse in many ways. It's certainly with the downturn in the economy, doing more with less. Everybody has had, it seems like, people leave their department, people leave their employers and not been replaced.
Right.
And now we're trying to do all of that with fewer people. And technology is great, but sometimes it doesn't take the place of another person doing.
We're all trying to bake more bread with less flour.
That's right.
Cheers to that. Phew.
Cheers to that. Woo-hoo.
That's a definite. So I know that you've been doing some pretty exciting surveys, some research on stress-related stuff, and
right.
So I want to hear a little bit about that. And I think people will be really interested. see some of the preliminary stuff, because I know that you're not done yet. So here's some of the preliminary things that you found out as you're looking at different stressors. But, what stresses you out, Eliz Greene?
What stresses me out? One of the big assumptions that we make about job stress, there's two. One is that the more expectations that are put on you, so if you have a high expectation job and a low amount of control about how you do it, that's where the biggest amount of job stress should exist.
Yeah.
So that's a theory. There isn't a lot of evidence about whether or not that still holds true. So that's one of the reasons I embarked on this study, is to see, if we looked at different types of job categories, there should be some in there that are very high expectation and low control. Those should be the most people in this group,
right?
Or the stress people in this group. So that's one of the questions to answer. What stresses me is the pace and the amount of work that I need to get done in the allowed time. Now, as an entrepreneur, that's on me, right?
Well, I mean, there's a big difference between eustress and distress. I mean, some of that stress, that eustress is stuff that really activates and motivates us.
Absolutely.
Like I will purposely save stuff up. If I got a slow month, I'll purposely save some stuff up for one day, and that'll be my power day. So at the end of the day, I'm like, woo, Chip's awesome.
Yeah.
I give myself a high five, pat on the back. I'm like, woo, I'm living large. But, like you said, there's other times where it's a really busy month. I have all these things going on, and I have to, figure out, how can I manage this without going on a murdering spree? Which I would, for the record, anybody listening, I would never really do that.
No.
I might think about it, but I don't.
Lots of different than actions. And I like the fact that you brought up the idea of busy, because that's a big part of this whole problem. Because you're right, there's stress that is motivating, and a lot of us need a certain amount of stress to kind of get going. Like, if I don't have much going on, I can do not much.
Yeah. An object in motion tends to stay in motion. Chip at rest tends to stay at rest.
Yes. So there's productive busyness. And I think we've all been in the situation where there's just a lot to do. And especially if you have a group of people, whatever it is, and you're just working really hard and you're really busy, but it feels good. Like you feel like you're accomplishing things. You're pulling together as a team. And even though you may work really hard or you work really long hours, it feels good.
Right.
Contrasted with just plain being busy, having so much to do and being unable to pay attention to the things that are really important, or even distinguishing between what is important and what isn't, because you just don't even have the time to think about it. That is not productive busyness.
Yeah. When I think about my own stress, I think about two things. I think about control and predictability. I can't control a situation. I can't predict what's going to happen. And for me, being a control, I like to be the puppet master in everything that I do. Look at me, I'm the puppet master. If I can't control it, I can't be the puppet master. I get, it's one of those things, I get stressed out. So for me, I tend to take more and more on, thinking that I can handle this. I got this. I don't need anybody else. I don't need any help. Don't ask me for help. And sometimes in our society, we're kind of fed this line where, we celebrate the person that can handle it all. And,
absolutely.
And that if you ask for help, you're wrong. And what I've had to learn to do is, ask for help here and there, because otherwise I honestly, I shut down, and I get, how should I put it? I get a little bitchy. I get a little bitchy.
But I think that's something we all struggle with. And I also think that when we take it all on ourselves, then we don't have anyone to share it with either.
Right.
There's no one around to say, hey, that was great. You did a great job on that, when you've isolated yourself. And that accomplishment is really important, because there's a physical reaction to stress. So when we're stressed, whether it's good stress or bad stress, your body feels it the same way.
Right.
this hormone called cortisol is released in the body, and that's a good thing. It's there for a reason. It makes us think a little quicker, move a little faster, has some other physiological things that are good in case we get injured, which is there for the more danger stress piece. But your body reads stress, whether it's the tiger coming out of the jungle or, oh crap, I missed that deadline. Same reaction.
Those damn tigers. They're always jumping out of the jungle at me. I mean, honestly, I'm walking along, minding my own business, and they just jump out. And I'm just like, hey, stupid tiger. But I'm just trying to get stuff done here.
Yeah. Leave me alone. But the idea is after the danger is passed, after the stress has gone away, that cortisol is supposed to go out of your system. And that's a healthy stress reaction. It goes up and down, up when you need it, down when you don't need it. But the problem is most of us are living kind of up here all the time.
Right. Hey, not me. I don't live up there all the time. I will live there until about noon, and then
and then it's happy hour.
And then it's drink 30. I mean,
drink 30.
Cheers, Scott. I don't know if you saw at the bottom here. Our good buddy Scott Listening's on there. He's like, talking works for me. I make myself point to take breaks every 45 to 60 minutes, just 5 to 15 minutes. Yeah, I think that's important. Taking a break here and there. I mean, just this morning I woke up. I had a pretty stressful day yesterday. So this morning I thought, what I'm going to do? I had to take my car to the shop. So I took it in and dropped it off the shop, and it's about 5 miles back to my house. So I walked back to my house.
Hey.
In the snow on a busy highway. And I thought one of two things is going to happen here. I'm going to either be less stressed when I get home, or I'm going to get hit by a semi. Either way, I'm not going to be stressed anymore.
Perhaps not.
We would call that in the Covey world a win-win.
But you're right. Physical activity is a great way to reduce stress.
Right.
Scott suggested taking a break. That's a really good strategy, especially if you stand up and leave whatever you were doing and then come back to it. That kind of resets everything, which is really good. And what you said about, Scott said talking works for him. That connection is really important too. Connecting with people, especially positive people, can have a real benefit.
Well, I mean, it's interesting to say. I mean, like emotions, this obviously emotions are contagious. I always tell people that it's kind of like, this phenomenon called emotional contagion, that, you're in a really great mood, your spouse or loved one comes home, they're in a bad mood, they yell at you, yell at the kid kicks the dog bites the cat runs away. I mean, that's emotional contagion in a nutshell right there. And so, surround yourself with positive people is really good, because you surround yourself with the wrong people, they're going to suck you down in their abyss, because nobody likes to be miserable more than miserable people. And nobody likes company more than those miserable people. They're like, hey, come to the dark side, run to the light, be miserable with me. I mean, I can't stand that. But
which is a really good point, especially when it comes to stress, because stress is contagious, and you can get secondhand stress. Just
with that, it's like secondhand smoking. I'm in a room.
Well, I wrote one of the articles I recently wrote is job stress the new smoking, because there's a lot of parallels to smoking, and particularly smoke. We used to have people who smoked in the workplace, and
I do. It was awesome.
But when that was banned, there was a 30 to 40% drop in heart attacks.
Really?
Right. So imagine if we were addressing job stress the same way, and what would the impact of that be? And it's similar. You can get it secondhand, and it's a giant risk factor for heart disease and a number of other illnesses.
So this is how my crazy brain works, is that, you're saying that it's secondhand, and I'm thinking it's like, so we have all these signs that say, no smoking and stuff. So, I'm just envisioning in my head, there's like these no stress, signs in workplaces. but they leave the handgun sign off because, Wisconsin's concealed carry. So you can't have stress, but you can carry your handgun. So I'm just saying, we probably need to have both signs up. Is all I'm, if we're going to do it.
Well, and I don't think you can eliminate stress.
Oh, no.
Because as you said, some stress is necessary.
Well,
but it's this up here all the time is the problem.
Right. And I forget the book that I read. I know you've read it too. And I'm trying to remember it because I know that was referred to us by a friend of ours. And I know you read it. But in the book, the guy said, was basically saying that, each one of us human beings have what's kind of, called, he referred to as a pissed off gene. Where the thing that, stresses off, we get pissed off about, but then it becomes the catalyst for us to do something positive. I mean,
right.
And we all have those things that, we get stressed off, we get angry, and we're just like, I'm going to do something about this. I mean, I'm going to take action. And I think that's good. I like, what you're doing is that, that's not really, that's eustress. That's good stress. What we really need to think about is that, the stress that sits there and festers for a long time because it can have some pretty grotesque effects on us. I mean, change the way we metabolize our food, change the way we store fat on our bodies. It certainly affects our relationships. I know that, after my divorce, I was pretty stressed out. Actually, I was fairly morose a lot. And thankfully, I still had friends like you that would listen to me. But in that, it affected a lot of my relationships, both personally and professionally. And that until I found a way to, manage it and find a positive outlet. And I'm a positive person. I always look for the positive, but even with that, sometimes we get so many things heaped on top of us that I don't say it's like a breakdown. We just don't know exactly how to handle it. And just, we need to have some kind of outlet. So cheers to outlets.
That's not necessarily the best outlet. And over here, Scotty is saying that solo practitioner stress and employee at company stress, in the end, aren't we responsible for managing our own stress? Yeah, absolutely. We're responsible for managing our own stress, and we can affect how we cope and how we deal with it. Because a lot of times we can't change some of the things in our environment, so we can choose how we react to them.
Right.
But also, sort of down the road, right now I'm in the big data collection piece of my research study. The second and third phases are really looking at what job stress looks like in environments, and what are the major stressors, and what, as an organization, could you change? And it may even be something small that would make a difference in the day-to-day stress level of your employees. And it, some things you can't change. I was talking with somebody who works at a construction company, and their time-sensitive proposal process, it's like they are just stressed because they have to get it out, and they have to get it out right now, and it's competitive, and it's just plain stressful. But that organization has recognized that that's true, and that their employees, that has physical ramification for them. So they've implemented things like bringing in people to do massages, or making sure that people, when you get done, there's a celebration. So
I'm gonna do that. I mean, I work by myself, so I'm just gonna reward myself with massage in like later in the day.
There you go.
Because I always refer to myself in the third person. I'll be like, "Hey, Lutz, it's time to get a massage." So,
all right.
Does it count if you do it yourself?
But
you can leave that alone.
I'm just gonna let that one stay there too. But I think the idea is that they can't change the nature of the business.
Right.
It is always going to be sort of a nonstop cycle of get it done, get it done, get it done. But they can do things to, make a difference in that environment.
Create a different atmosphere. I mean, I'm a believer in that. That
I know you
can have the most stressful job, but a leader can make a huge difference in the overall atmosphere, the overall attitude of the people that are underneath their watch. That if you're, again, going back to what we were talking about before, emotional contagion. And like, if you're all stressed out, that's going to pass on to the people that work for you.
Right.
But if you shift your mindset a little bit and, think about, all right, I am stressed out, but what attitude do I need to show to my people so that, that doesn't move on to them? And that's, like you said, that's your choice as a leader, as an individual, even in the family. I mean, you could have the worst day at work, but I mean, do you really want to come home and give that to your family? I mean, you could think about, all right, how do I need to shift that? What do I need to do in order to, make that rapid mental adjustment so I'm not infecting everybody around me? So.
Right. And I think as leaders, even just acknowledging that stress situation is true and making sure that people know you understand is a big part of taking a step forward in making that a more supportive environment.
Right.
Rather than just saying, hey, it's the way our job is, suck it up.
Don't say, suck it up, buttercup. We all got shit to do.
Right. And, the fact of the matter is, when stress becomes anxiety, which is that's an evolution. When stress becomes anxiety, our brain function goes down. Like,
yeah.
You can't think well. You can't be creative. Things just take longer because it's sort of like your bandwidth is taken up with the stress and the anxiety.
Right.
So if you can alleviate some of that, if you can get that cortisol to come down, and sometimes it's just that recognizing that here's what's happening and what small thing that can you do to either sort of let the pressure valve off a little bit,
right,
or make a decision about how you choose to feel about the situation.
I like when you said that, like how you choose to look at it.
Right.
I don't. Scott put on there. That's why Chip is a member of DENSA, low IQ anxiety, too much stress. Thank you, Scott. Anyway, you gotta love friends. So
yeah, you do.
Cheers to Scott. Mm-hmm.
Hey.
But I like, that you put in there the whole choice factor on people, how you choose to, because I think sometimes people negate that. Something I remember from social psychology back in my undergrad days is that low achievers tend to put the blame on everybody else. Our high achievers tend to accept all responsibility. And that a lot of times when we get, stressed, one, going back to what you said about you don't think clearly, I call that getting the crazy brain. Things that seem to make sense at the time don't always make sense once you calm down, especially when I'm angry. I mean, honest to God, things seem to make a lot of sense when I'm stressed out and angry. But afterwards, that I'm calmed down, I'm like, why did I do that again?
Yeah.
Anyway, but going back to you saying, making that choice, that cognitive choice of like, I remember a guy that I used to work with, and it broke it down really simple for me. That kind of looking at, there are things you can live with and things you can't live with. So if you can live with it, is it really important right now? Don't worry about it. If you can't live with it, then it becomes the catalyst for some kind of change you need to make, and your stress, whatever. But that's a choice we have to make. Barb's on here. She says, sounds like optimist versus pessimist. Yeah, in a lot of ways, in my opinion anyway, you're the expert. I think that our overall attitude towards stress, a lot of it comes down to, are we going to look for the positive or are we going to look for the negative?
Well, I think there's some of that, but I also think that it's choosing the reaction. We are going to have a reaction to a stressful situation, whether that's good stress or bad stress,
right?
Productive stress or non-productive stress, whatever it is, we are going to have a reaction to it. We can shape that reaction. And, there was a study that said people who swear tend to feel less pain, tend to feel less stress, which is interesting.
Hell yeah.
Wait. Well, But here's the other part of that study, though. If you swear on a regular basis, that reaction tends to have less impact.
Oh.
So you have to save it up for when you need it.
Kind of like Tourette's, where I just I just go off forever. I drop 1,000 different F-bombs and so forth.
Right. Yeah. But here's the thing. It's that immediate reaction to a stressful situation. And it doesn't have to be swearing, but and it's not swearing and staying sort of angry and mad and for a long period of time, but it's like, dang, that happened. Okay, what now? And it's the what now, instead of swallowing down the stress and pretending that it's not there, that's when it comes out in bad ways.
Right. Well, and Barb on here had a good point as far as like, it's not really, she was talking personally with, bereavement and people die. Right. With any stressful thing, it's really how you react to it and what you do with it. So, absolutely. What have you found that works for people the best? And you're looking at your, the stuff that you've gotten back in your research, mm-hmm. What are people doing to handle their stress besides leadership happy hour?
So we're still very much early in the research study. And if anybody wants to participate in the study, I have a survey link that when I'm not talking, I'll type in here. I wrote a little blog about being on here tonight. It's linked there, but I also put the direct link into the chat here. But in many ways, if there's something very stressful going on, finding something else that relieves the stress is important. And, the big ones are, moving around more, laughing, having connection with positive people. All of those things help, but sometimes it's just doing something you enjoy.
Right.
Happy hour, but not necessarily. But happy hour, we'll make jokes about that, but by definition, it's a social time. Mm-hmm. And when we get busy, when things are stressful, we tend to pull in rather than reach out.
Right.
And when
that's what I do.
Right. I think it's a natural reaction. And I'm sure Barbara probably sees that with people who are grieving. They tend to pull in rather than reach out, which is why when you have a friend or a loved one who has lost someone, being specific in offering help is really important, where just saying, how can I help is not always helpful, but saying, hey.
It makes the person saying it feel better. How can I help? But I'm not going to call you.
But if you say, I'm going to bring you dinner this week, what night works for you? That's specific.
Right.
And a lot of us, especially as we become adults, there's always something that we enjoy doing, maybe early in our adulthood or, in our school years or whatever, just something that bring us joy that we leave behind because we become adults and we become busy and we just don't do it anymore. But
and quite frankly, sometimes we forget.
It's like,
we used to like,
you don't even remember when or why you stop doing it.
Right. I think about like my brother. He started playing the guitar last year. Mm-hmm. Just as something to help him relieve stress. For me, something that helps me make that rapid mental adjustment is, you said laughing. Any Will Ferrell movie will pull me out. So mm-hmm. if I'm at a low and I need to just have something else to think about rather than, because we have this propensity just to sit there and stew and be in this negativity spiral.
Right.
So if I'm in there, and because I don't know, maybe it's inherent to who we are as human beings. On the whole fight or flight, we try to stay alive. So we look at the negative. What's the next thing that's going to kill us? I don't know, but we just focus in on that negative. So, for me,
we are programmed to look for the negative.
Okay, good. I'm glad you said it because that's what I've always thought. I'm glad it's been validated by Eliz Greene right here today on
There you
Leadership
go.
Happy Hour. That Will Ferrell movie, I'll watch, that, or any of the Saturday Night Live stuff. I don't know what it is about him. He just pulls me out of my funk. So
Or you could just wait for whatever Chip posts on Facebook, because usually that's funny.
sometimes not. I
Most of the time.
I try to. Well, it's funny you say that, because there for about a year I did I posted about a joke a day.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people will be like, "Oh, I really like that you do that." But at the time, I wasn't doing it for anybody else. I was doing it for me. Mm-hmm. That, to start my morning off with something positive to help me with my own stress level. And, right. I would look for, joke had to have certain parameters. It had to be, readable, in one section on Facebook where I didn't have to, click read more. It had to actually make me laugh. And I've got a little bit of a warped sense of humor. And,
yes.
It couldn't be political or religious or anything like that, because I don't dabble, or, anything that was off color humor, however funny, I don't try to dabble in any of that. So, but people will be like, "Oh, that was really great. I missed that." But during that year of my life, I did that for me versus anybody else, that it was my own personal Zen time, where I'd like, "Oh, this made me laugh. All right, I'm starting my day off on something positive." And, Barb had put on there is like building your resilience. I mean,
exactly.
That's what it was for me. And that helped me build my resilience a little bit, finding the humor in situations.
Exactly. And I think when you're not stressed, although some of us never get there, but finding those things that you can create a habit with, like, I like that idea of starting your day with something positive. That there are little rituals that you do that kind of reset. Barbara said, or a positive affirmation. Absolutely. I have a little mantra that I say all the time. Life is not about perfection. It's about moving in the right direction. And it's like, sometimes we mess up something. Sometimes things don't go as planned. That's okay. We just keep moving in the right direction.
It's funny to say perfection, because I think perfection is like the biggest time waster in the world. That there is nothing been perfect. I'm gonna get religious right now. Has nothing perfect on this earth since Jesus walked. I know Scott's Jewish, but he can agree with me on this. Anyway, but for me, it's like there's no such thing as perfect. So I'm gonna do the best I can whenever I can, and sometimes. This is what I learned from my orchestra conductor in high school. Sometimes things are just close enough for jazz. Just that it's close enough for jazz. I'm just going to go with it, because it's not going to be perfect.
Right.
And giddy up. Yeah, that's all I can do.
Well, and I know we've had this conversation any number of times that, perfect is the enemy of done.
Yeah.
Because if you wait for it to be perfect, it is never going to happen. And I
know a chiropractor like that.
Pardon?
I know a chiropractor like that. Never mind. It's a joke. Well, I know you know what I'm talking about. Nobody else will. A little private joke. Anyway, go
ahead. Barbara says, why do people feel the need to be perfect? I think as a society, we celebrate, it's this vicious cycle, right? We put people up on this pedestal of being perfect and then love to tear them back down.
Yes, we do. I love you. I hate you. I love you.
Oh, you're beautiful. You're ugly. It's like, it's just.
Oh, she was so beautiful last week, but her butt's so big now. Yeah.
When I do my program on stress, I ask people to take a little quiz with me that helps them evaluate where they are in terms of managing stress. And one of the statements that I say is, are you worried that someone soon will find out you're just pretending to be this good? Because I think we all have this, like, don't look behind the curtain because things are messy back here,
Yeah. Yeah. Did you back in the 60s, there was a movie called The Scanners. You ever see that?
Gosh, that sounds familiar.
Well, Donald Sutherland was in it, and they're like pod people and so forth. But at
Okay.
the end, he gets taken over, and he becomes actually, a scanner. And this I always think about, where somebody says something to him, he's been like fighting the cause the entire time, and at the end, somebody says something to him, but he's actually been turned into a pod person, and he looks at this like and that's the way a lot of times when you said that, that's what I think about. I think about, I'm an imposter. I'm really a pod person. You don't really know it. That a lot of times we have this whole facade that we go through on, the whole perception management. Well, if I look like I'm okay, people think I'm okay. I don't want to let people know that I don't have things under control. Because if I do, then I'm not gonna seem as good as I really should be.
Right. But
what
so
a hot mess.
magazine, like a year ago, Speaker Magazine asked me to write an article on work-life balance. And I'm like, okay, but here's the thing. I think that is the biggest disservice we have done to women, is to talk about work life as some sort of, you have to figure out how one balances the other. It's like, that would assume that somehow one offsets the other.
Right.
They both exist in the same environment. They both can be joyful, and they both can be stressful. And it's not like you have to figure out how to balance them. It's that you have to manage everything all together. And I said, from the outside, it may look like I have everything all together all the time. But the truth is, I am this far away from just crisis at any given moment. You never know. Like my phone rang when we were talking, and I'm like, oh, what is that now?
When you're saying that, I think about, all right, so instead of balance, I think of balance, I think about a teeter-totter.
Right.
All right, so I grew up a fat kid. So to me, I think about teeter-totter, I think about being a fat kid on a teeter-totter. So, I don't really want to balance that out, because if I want to balance that out, I got to throw a lot more stuff on the other side of the teeter-totter. What I really want is a strategy on how to get the fat kid off the teeter-totter, so I'm in control of it. You know what I mean? That's what it really comes down. I mean, I don't want to balance out the fat kid. I want to balance out the big stress I got over here. I want to know how to get the fat kid off so I can balance things in my out. So, I mean, how can I get the fat kid off the teeter-totter, Eliz?
But that's not how it works. I mean, it's not about how much is over there. It's that it all exists at the same time together. And that while you may have, I'm going to use your terminology, and God help me if somebody clips this and uses it, but you may have the fat kid over there.
I grew up a fat kid. I can say fat kid on a teeter-totter. It's within my purview here.
But that's okay. So you have that. That's draining your resources. That just means you have to put stuff into your resources to keep refilling it. The problem is if this is always draining it out and you don't get enough back in, that's when the problem is created.
Okay, so how do I lure the fat kid off the teeter-totter then?
Sometimes you can't. Sometimes.
What? I want him off that teeter-totter.
Okay.
Damn him.
But listen, there are things in our lives we can't control. There just are. And whether that's an illness or an injury or a financial situation you didn't see coming, or a relationship thing you didn't see coming, whatever it is, a job restructuring, whatever.
That was just my whole life over the last year.
I know.
What are you doing?
Sorry. But there are things you can't change. That just sits there. What we can control is how much we keep feeding the resources. And that's, making sure that we're taking care of our health, making sure that we're having those connections that feed us, that we're doing things that are pleasurable. And the problem is when that thing that's weighing so heavily is an injury or a sick loved one or a child who's sick, it's really hard to keep putting it back in.
Right.
And then when you have to balance a stressful job as well, that's when we get sick.
That makes wholehearted sense right there. Yeah, because people, some workplaces look at it as like, well, don't bring work with you, to work with you. I mean, you hire a whole person, so they're going to come with baggage. It's just the way it is. Just like when you take your baggage home with you at the end of the day. I mean, you're going to take work home with you. You're going to bring home to work with you. So,
Right.
So what would be your advice? Like for me, I'm in charge of a department. It's really high stress, like you're talking about, where, we got big deadlines. What can I do to make things better and less stressful for the people in my group?
Well, I think the first thing is just recognizing that the problem exists, that it may just be a function, like the construction company, a function of the type of business that you're in.
Right.
But recognizing that it exists and doing something to analyze, to assess what's going on, and that takes asking questions that may be uncomfortable. Some of the questions on my survey are open-ended, and we made assumptions about what the top stressors were going to be, but the things that people put in the other category, like, nope, none of those 10 are my top stressors. This is it.
Right.
Some of that is going to be really interesting to share with those organizations, because I'm not sure they know that is what's holding their employees sort of stress hostage.
Uh-huh.
Some of those things they could change. So finding out what those things are that are adjustable, or finding ways to feed the resources in. So whether that's making sure that there is an emphasis on people actually taking vacation. And when they're on vacation, not only giving them permission, but demanding that they aren't in contact. Because you can go on and take your job with you.
What?
Right?
Craziness.
But the fact of the matter is, there are hundreds and hundreds of hours of vacation that people never take.
So I used to tell my grad students all the time that I'm a firm believer in not checking email when you're on vacation, and when you get back, to do the blanket delete of every email that came in while you were gone. Because most of them have become OBE, overtaken by events, because you'll have 10 emails on the same thing. And you've got the excuse of saying that, oh, you know what? It must have gotten lost. I was gone on vacation. I don't know what happened.
I wonder if, we all put those vacation and, notifications, the sort of autoresponder on our email. If our autoresponder says, I'm sorry, I'm out of the office from this date to this date. If your email is very important, please resend it on this date.
Yeah, do that. Or say that I am currently in a submarine on my way to Atlantis. Chances are your email will not reach me ever.
But I think, it would be an interesting experiment to have an autoresponder that was like that. Like, I'm going to have 1,000 emails to go through when I return. If you really want my attention, resend your email on, whatever that date is that you're going to return.
Or thanks for being
my favorite person. I like people who say that I'm right.
But it's funny. It would be even funnier to put on your autoresponder, like, I am not here, and then like tell them to contact the person you hate most in the office. Like if you've got a huge problem.
We were talking about things we could actually put into use.
This would be in use, and it would be twofold. One, it would completely push your stress off somebody else, and then you could laugh about it the entire time you're on vacation. Be like, oh man, I know this person's going to be contacting them. Woohoo! I mean, that would be hilarious to me. Hilarious. But I've got a little bit of a warped sense of humor anyway. Well, I think we got a lot of good tips on handling, ways we can handle different stress. I mean, from what I, hear you say is that, one, acknowledging, two, being social, looking for ways that we can connect with other people, and then having different strategies that work for us, because, stress is very individual, and we internalize it, certain ways, and we all handle it different ways. So have an individual strategy on, what we're going to do. I mean, I like some of the things that you're talking, or mentioned, like I said, for me, it's humor. For other people, it's, it's other things, but good stuff, Elizabeth Greene.
Thanks. And it's really about putting the resources back into the system.
Yeah. Cheers to that. Resources. So just like with any happy hour, like if we were at a bar and we were having a couple of drinks, I would probably dare you to do something that was really crazy, Liz, simply because, it's a bar. That's what we do. But, since we're virtual, I have to do that in the way of asking you a few different would you rathers. Now, I did tell you, I'm just like, I normally have my overstuffed would you rather book, but it's actually in the back of my car that's in the shop. So I actually had to print off a list.
And so you had to walk.
Yeah, I'm just going to randomly, pick one and ask you a few different would you rathers.
This scares me more than just a little.
That's the way it should be. All right. Elizabeth Hughes Greene.
Yes.
Would you rather experience a sharp pain in your side each time someone says your name or have a bell sound each time you are aroused?
I thought you weren't going to ask me any questions that you were
my finger went, I randomly picked it. I'm sorry.
Sharp pain. Thank you.
What's that? Sharp pain. All right. Good answer. All
Thanks.
right. Next question. Would you rather have, Eliz Greene, a 10-inch long belly button that swayed to music?
What? Wait. One more time, what?
A 10-inch long belly button that swayed to music, or have accordions for legs?
I'll go with the belly button.
There's no right or wrong answer in this. I'm just throwing this out there. All right. Let me see here. I'm not going to ask you that one. All right. Last one, Eliz Greene. Would you rather never be able to speak again or always have to say everything that is on your mind right now?
Oh, man.
I think we know people like this.
Wow.
Okay, what would your husband rather you do?
So my husband, he constantly thinks I'm funny because I say, bizarre things. And I have told him, if you only knew all the things I don't say.
Right. You don't have to answer that one. That's all good. So I'm going to let you off the hook on that one because that's the way it works at Happy Hour. We just let people off the hook.
All right.
So if people want to find you, where do they go? They want more information on what you're doing or take your survey. Where do they go?
The best place to find me is at elizgreene.com, which is ELIZGREENE. I like all of the E's at elizgreene.com.
Cool. And well, I appreciate you being on the show today.
It's my pleasure.
Because it was a lot of fun. I like hanging out with friends, even if it's virtual. I mean, I like getting coffee with you in person, but this was equally as good. Cheers to you.
Cheers to you.
Thank you so much. Again, friends, my name is Chip Lutz. If you like this, you want a little bit more, visit Eliz Greene at elizgreene.com, or you can go to my website, www.unconventionalleader.com, and you can visit past episodes of Leadership Happy Hour at leadershiphappyhour.com. Thanks again, Eliz. I certainly appreciate your time. I know you got kids to take care of, those lovely teenagers. It's short-lived. You'll make it through. So
thanks. That's good to know. Speaking of stress that doesn't go away.
You're on the home stretch. All right. Thanks again for tuning in, friends. We'll talk to you later.